SpudAdi, you Spud and I'm Addy. Just listen, you'll glisten, cause you'll be so happy. Our podcast is random talk on this and on that. But what did you expect from potatoes and fat? Yeah, what did you expect from potatoes and fat? Greetings everyone, and welcome to Tuesday night SpudAdi. Obviously, there isn't actually a Wednesday night SpudAdi or Saturday SpudAdi or Sunday SpudAdi, but it just sounds more like kind of professional and exciting when you kind of go, it's Tuesday night SpudAdi, thus giving it a kind of like immediacy to now. Although, of course, if you listen to the podcast version, then of course it isn't actually Tuesday night SpudAdi, it's whenever you listen to it SpudAdi. So it's just like now SpudAdi. Hi, Spud.
Hi. Are you trying to get the whole Saturday night vibe going?
It's
Saturday night.
Saturday
It's
night
live.
Thursday night SmackDown.
That's it. We're out.
TFI Friday. You know, that kind of thing. Just adding a bit of, you know, dayness to it. It makes things sound exciting when you add a day. Hey, do you want to meet up for golf tomorrow or Wednesday golf?
I suppose so. Yeah, because everything else is a bit varied. So yeah.
Hey, so what do we do on the first day of the week? Huh?
What, Monday?
Yeah.
Squash.
No.
Oh, we watched wrestling.
No, like Monday night squash.
Oh, Monday night squash.
See, it sounds better. Monday night squash. Although this week it's going to be Friday night squash.
Yeah, but then
I'm just going to try adding it to sentences and stuff. You know, when I have, you know, when like maybe like tomorrow when I have like a meal or stuff, I'm like, this is Wednesday night lasagna. I don't know, maybe.
But if you say like Monday night squash, then it's just the way you say it. I'm sure they didn't. I mean, when they're interviewing people for Saturday Night Live, and the guy at the begining goes, "It's Saturday night. It's New York City." You know, if they went, "Oh, it's Saturday night, and it's where are we? New York, yeah, and it's going to be really funny." Yeah.
But I do it on some of my other shows as well, like the Doctor Who Legacy stuff. I'm always like, "It's Thursday. It's Doctor Who Legacy." I don't know why you do it, but it does make it sound, you know, like, "Oh my God, it's live, man." It's. Live is always a stupid thing to do anyway. Like, why is something better because it's live? It's not. That's a complete, like, on adverts, yeah? So I don't know if they do this in other countries, but in Britain, sometimes you get an advert that has, in the corner, they'll be like, you know, they'll go up to some woman or man and be like, hey, try this, like, new washing detergent powder. And she'll be like, oh, I don't want to. And they'll be like, oh, no, really, we'll give you some free. And she'll be like, oh, fine, I'll try it. And it turns out to be amazing. But it sometimes has in the corner, filmed live.
Oh, that annoys me. Because how else could you film it?
Filmed dead? Filmed...
Unless they filmed it, played it on a big screen, and then filmed the screen. Therefore, they were filming a recorded version of the live event that happened previously.
Why is live more exciting? I mean, the only advantage of something being live is you can cock it up, and there'll be a cock up in there. But actually, if someone came up to me and said, "Hey, this TV program has been carefully presented and edited and improved to give you the best possible viewing experience," I'd be more excited than them going live. But there's something about the word live that...
Well, in the UK, they do the soap EastEnders. So for our UK listeners, they know who that is or what that is. Maybe not in the UK, you might not know, but they do occasionally these live big specials.
Yeah.
And these are the only ones I'm interested in because they're hilarious. There's people overreacting or forgetting people's names, and I think the last time it happened, someone called someone their real name, not the character's name.
The actor's name, not the
they were like,
name.
"I think you mean this name." They just went, "Oh yes, it's brilliant." But you wouldn't get that on. Do America do that? Apart from like things like Saturday Night Live, where they have the skits. Better? It's not better. It's totally live. Those are the worst episodes of EastEnders, and you purely watch it for car crash TV. But you wouldn't get like an episode of The Walking Dead. It's live.
Yeah, exactly. Or Jurassic World, live. Doctor Who, live. Can you imagine how shite it would be?
It would be so bad. That's what the old ones look like. All old TV looks like it was live because they haven't really obviously mastered editing and special effects and covering over bits.
They used to have each scene could only ever be a certain length of time because the physical film reel was only something like, I think it was like 13 minutes or something like that. there was the maximum length of time they could actually film anything in one go without changing the reels. And there was I think it was one of the Hitchcock ones. Where he decided basically kind of make a film around that concept. So the whole film basically has 5 scenes in it, and each one is an entire reel. So each scene is played out completely for the whole lot, which I think is really really cool idea of taking a restriction and turning it into like kind of a feature. But obviously, apparently, the timing of each scene had to be done really, really, really carefully, because obviously, if they went over the 13 minutes, the camera would just basically just go.
Oh no! It's the run out.
Anyway,
last.
What?
Go on, you first.
I was going to say, me and Spud watched Hell in a Cell.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
He came around mine. We had a kebab and a Magnum, which Spud was very excited about.
Oh man, that was a good Magnum.
Again, that was a good Magnum. It wasn't like a Netflix and chill substitution. I was Netflix and chill in front of some students the other day in school, and they laughed as if they'd never experienced laughter before.
I didn't know what that meant. I thought it literally meant watching Netflix and relaxing. Until
I don't get why it actually does. I think it's the same. I think it's like the new version of like, do you want to come up for coffee?
Yeah, probably. But when I first heard the phrase, being, not exactly young anymore, unfortunately, I thought it literally meant, I just or able to walk or see without glasses. Why? It doesn't normally do that. I just thought it was like, oh yeah, right, yeah, watch Netflix and relax on the sofa with your feet up. And then I kept seeing it in like memes on Facebook, like where it means, oh yeah. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you? Oh, it means that. As much as I tried to get that to happen last night, it didn't. At one point, you were talking to me about what was happening on the screen, and I was staring at the Magnum. Do you remember that? Because I was really enjoying that Magnum.
You were loving your Magnum. Did
you see that? What do you think of that thing that just happened? Oh, this Magnum's so good.
Do you think Netflix mind's being part of like a Netflix and chill meme for like?
No, I would. If I owned it, I would like that, because it's becoming. You know how, as much as it annoys me because I dislike Apple, which is many people feel I just do this to go against popularity, but you know how people talk about tablets and they don't say tablet, they say iPads, even if they mean tablets.
Yeah, like Hoovers.
Yeah, Hoover. There's another one, and I can't think of any other examples. But that's exactly what Netflix is becoming for the streaming service. It's like, oh, do you want to come around and watch Netflix or something? It's like, even though there's Amazon Prime and other services, I think that's going to be the one that turns into the Hoover, the iPad, the default version of something.
Well, it's a compliment to an extent, because it basically means that your product was such a trendsetter that it actually became not the company term, but the term for that particular thing. Which is cool. Until, of course, you a bit like Napster or AOL, you are grounded to dust, and all that is left is your name.
Oh, wow, that's ending that little conversation on a really sad note. Grounded to dust.
Time moves on, I went to a castle last year. Yeah, no, it was last summer before last. I went to a castle, and it was in Cornwall. No, Devon, which is almost in Cornwall for those of you who aren't from the UK. And it had loads and loads of like antiques, but not like antiques from, say, like 300 years ago, but like things that you would commonly see around the home from like, say, 50 or 60 years ago. And it's just crazy how much technology has changed. So I kind of half recognized a few of the objects from like around, especially in my grandparents' houses and stuff. But it was scary kind of looking at it and being like a museum and being like, this wasn't what the Vikings used. This was what my granddad used when he was 40. And it was things like, what came before, like the first version of a Hoover, for example, or like an item used to turn street lamps on and off, or like older versions of like home, like drills and things like, rather than an electric drill, like a little kind of winding drill and things like that. Just loads and loads of little like tools that just kind of show just how quickly kind of technology's changed. It was cool. In some ways, it was quite cool seeing the stuff, because obviously a lot of what we use these days is electronic, which is awesome. I love to keep my electronics because, they're so lovely. But, the lot of tools that came from, like, say, 50 years ago were a lot more kind of physical, like you could kind of see the parts working and stuff. It was really nice.
I went to it was in a castle, but it was like a little village thing near where I live, and my younger son said, "What's that?" And I was trying to explain to him about it was a candle thing, the street candle lighters, the lamp lighters, and he was like, "What? Well, but they just come on." No, there was a period where there was no electricity and there was no mobile phones. What do you mean? It's like the outrage in his little face. But how did people go on Facebook? So wrestling.
I mean, obviously, the thing about life in say 20 years is whatever the big life changing thing is, someone won't have actually thought of it yet because it, when I was young, the idea of a mobile phone would have been, you wouldn't have even considered it, and the idea of Facebook, you wouldn't have even considered it, and so on.
But now people like me explaining to again the kid when I was proper young that there was no internet and there was no mobile phones. None of that. It's funny seeing their little faces. What? I suppose it's like
to that like ridiculously futuristic point of like computers in our eyeballs and walking around the lounge and being like, computer, lights on, that kind of thing. Or do you think?
No, we're nearly there now. I mean, like game consoles have voice commands. My phone now, I could say, "Okay, Google," and there you go, just did it from across the room, and it just picks up everything. We're very close to that.
What is the phrase "Okay, Google"?
I don't know. Why is? I think it's okay. Anything. What's the Xbox Connect?
Because it's almost like
Hey Connect or something like that.
Because the word "okay" means like all right, or I agree, or it was okay. It's satisfactory. It's not like if it was like wake up Google, wake up Xbox, or something like that, or get ready Google, or something. You know what I mean? Something like that. That's just like a little like the phrase to me. Okay, Google to me doesn't seem to quite. I get it because it's kind of like going to go. Okay, Google, ready to go. It's almost like that. It's like a kind of like all right, Google, me and you, we're going to do some serious stuff right now. So you okay? I'm okay. Hands in, everybody. Right. Search Chinese restaurants within 5 minutes walking distance. Go. Get the results now. Yes. Go. Hut. It's like
that. Or what's the Apple version? You've got Apple. Do you use the voice stuff on it? Siri?
No,
is that Siri?
No,
Siri,
I never do. I've never really got into voice stuff. I got massively into voice stuff. Like, I do some of my marketing with voice recognition stuff. Like I hold people's work in front of me and I kind of go, the first paragraph is really, really good because it contains this and that. And that's why I use voice recognition for that. And I also want to use voice recognition. Oh God, it was like 10 years ago now. I bought this Star Trek game called, I remember, Star Trek something, but it was like you were actually in the bridge. Yeah, Bridge Commander. That was what it was called, Star Trek Bridge Commander. So it wasn't one of those ones where you run around on a alien ship with blasters. You were actually commanding the ship. And I found this like 10 years ago for a bit of voice recognition software. So obviously it wasn't very, very good. And I decided I was going to use it to control the ship. So I could actually be, this is very sad, but so I could actually be Kirk. And there's that bit in Star Trek 6 where, I might have told the story before, I'm really sorry. There's this bit in Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, where, there's loads of stuff going on with the Klingons and stuff. And then finally, at this very climactic moment, Kirk puts his fist under his chin, looks right into the kind of the camera and goes, fire, it's one of the most, for me, it's one of the most iconic Star Trek moments of all time. Because it's just, the captain on the bridge, the ships are locked in kind of battle. And then it's that fire and the rocket goes out and it hits the Klingon ship up the exhaust pipe, boom, and they all blow up. And, it kind of saves the day. So I decided I would use this really old voice recognition program which was cutting edge at the time, to control this Star Trek ship. So I made it learn my voice and I controlled myself saying fire and left and, shields up and all that kind of stuff. But the problem is that obviously for the game to be any good, you couldn't just come up on any kind of ship and say fire and it would blow up, and then fire and then it would blow up, because that isn't really very strategic. Just killing things in one shot. So as with normal computer games, you actually had to kind of fire many, many times and navigate your ship and rotate and turn left and turn right. So what actually happened is, rather than me kind of going fire and blowing up the Klingons, it would be one of the going fire, go left, turn right, go down, shields up, no, shield to the port. Oh, no, shields to the other one. Oh, shit, no, that's not a command. Oh, no, fire. Wait, no, that's not either. Oh, God, no, rotate to the right. No, wait, no, bank left. Oh, fire. And that kind of killed all of my enthusiasm for even to this day, voice recognition, because I gave myself a hoarse throat shouting fire so many times at a PC. That was a really long story. I'm really sorry, but
I used it more recently. Well, it was still a couple of years ago, but one of the FIFA games on the Xbox used Connect, and it was on default. So, and it was an NBA game I played as well. That both of them, I kept making substitutions and changing my tactics, and I was like, "What?" Because I was swearing and stuff. I was like, forward. So it would turn on the offense. And I was like, no, there's no defense there. What's happening? I obviously clicked eventually that the Kinect was telling the game. And there was Mass Effect 3 did it as well. I tried it and it was terrible. It was like, throw a grenade. And I'm sitting in the living room on my own. I was like, I feel stupid.
Yeah.
That was it. But I
found something with Battlefield where you could do a similar thing. You know, the grenade, you didn't press grenade, you said throw grenade. But you realise how much quicker your fingers are than your speech in that respect.
Yeah, throw grenade, I'm dead. But I do use it with my phone. It is very easy to just ask my phone a question. I don't mind that, but not games. I haven't got used to it with games.
Yeah, no, not games. Not games.
So wrestling.
I had something else I was going to say on voice recognition, but I've got it. Oh, yeah, you're right with the swearing thing. Because the problem with voice recognition, especially if it's like narration or dialogue, is that when you make a mistake, because you're verbalizing everything, because you're putting it into this document. When you make a mistake, you also verbalize the mistake. So the number of times I've had to heavily edit the documents to stop my students receiving something that basically says, I really like the first paragraph because it contains good keywords and quat. Oops, no, shit, bollocks, no, delete that. Oh, crap, fuck. Oh, why am I using this piece of shit? Full stop. You know, and then I have to go back and because you can't delete you have to like turn off the voice recognition thing and manually grab the whole thing. Because otherwise, to tell it, because it's so intelligent, you can actually kind of say things like select, you know, so say I did a little phrase like add a keyword, you know, I could then say select phrase, add a keyword, and it would highlight it. And then I could say delete that phrase. So the problem is to get rid of all that, you'd have to like say select, shit, oh crap, oh bollocks. You have to delete it afterwards.
And then you realise it hasn't picked up the select bit and it just puts it in there again.
Yeah, you've just basically about to print out this student this page of profanity, and then I've just got visions of one of them slipping a few one day, and then the student being like, "Do you not like me or something?" And I'll be like, "What do you mean?" And they'll be like, "Well, you've just basically told me to go slice myself."
Yeah, there's 2 paragraphs saying how I should like put my own head in my rectum and really hard up my own ass. It's a bit weird. I thought we got on as a teacher-student relationship. Okay,
and then select myself.
Select my ass. That doesn't make any sense. What's happening?
Yes, Hell in the Cell. So Spud came round yesterday and we watched Hell in the Cell, which is obviously the show was held together by 3 main matches, which was Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins versus Kane, and the big one, Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar for the final time in a Hell in a Cell feud ender match. So go for it. Talk us through. What did you think of the show?
Yeah, overall, I liked it. I mean, the Magnum's very nice I had, but yeah, it was good. It was good. It was, I didn't, looking back on it, I feel that the wrong people won in a couple of the matches, but overall, it was good.
Why did you feel?
Well, because I obviously grew up with The Undertaker, I did kind of wish he would win. I know it doesn't make sense, but I just wanted him to win anyway. And there's something to be said about, a man in his like mid to late 50s, like kicking people in the balls all the time. It's quite funny. So I was a bit upset about that. Spoilers, by the way, Undertaker one. I'm lost even. False spoilers. And Bray, I wanted him to win, but he didn't as well.
What was really nice about the pay-per-view is that for most of the matches, the wins and the losses mattered, even when they weren't title matches, because, you know, quite often in a, you know, if you take something like football or basketball, and I know you'll understand basketball far more than me, or the Olympics, every single win and loss matters. And in boxing, of course, wins and losses matter because you box so rarely. You know, that every, you know, boxing, you know, what statistics you interested in a person and how many wins and how many losses. And wins and losses really, really matter in every other sport other than wrestling, where wins and losses can just be completely pointless, especially if you're a kind of mid-card or upper mid-card. You know, you can trade wins for years amongst the same group of people, you know, Dolph Ziggler, Kofi Kingston, Jack Swagger, Miz, or anyone that's kind of around that level. They just trade wins and trade wins and trade wins, and the wins and losses do not matter. And I think that it kills a lot of matches because you're just basically waiting for the finish. But I felt that last night, in the vast majority of the matches, it mattered who won. Like Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar, it mattered, for the sake of their characters and their personal kind of bragging rights. You cared who won because they cared who won. And you could say the same about Ryback and Kevin Owens. You could say the same about the tag title match. You could say the same about Bray and Roman. It all of them. I can't remember all the individual matches because I was zoned out at certain points, but it mattered who won, and that was really good.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially, and even back that up more the next night on Raw, which I've read about. I haven't watched it yet, but all the winners got an opportunity, didn't they? So
they did. But even without that little follow-up gimmick, it mattered. But I think the gimmick really helped. The fact that, cause if you haven't seen Raw, basically what happens is they say on Raw, right, okay, everyone who won last night gets entered into a tournament, like a mini tournament 4-way match for a shot at the world champion. And obviously you wouldn't do that gimmick every time because it would get old. But what it did show is that the matches on the pay-per-view mattered. I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but me and Spud he used to come around my place once a week. It was when we were doing Japanese wrestling games. And I can't remember exactly how the system worked, but we had some sort of complex system that every win moved you up a ranking and every loss moved you down a ranking. And every so often the person with the highest number of points got a title shot or something like this. And
it was a league table, yeah.
It's relatively similar to Universe Mode, except Universe Mode does it a bit randomly. Like you can have a win or a loss, and you go and look at the rankings, and nothing's changed, and you're like, "Hey, what?" But I think wrestling needs something where wins and losses really matter. Like, when's the last time that I mean, wrestling tends to put together. And I know to moan about these things, but I'm more kind of. I like wrestling. I think WWE's actually doing a good job, generally. But it's little things that are just going to go. Dolph Ziggler, you've won 10 out of your last 13 matches, therefore we're going to give a title shot. You never see phrases like that. And when you get a winning streak, they sometimes use the phrase winning streak, but that basically means they won last week and the week before because they just decided they want to give someone a winning streak. It's not like an organic thing. And
it feels like a push. That's the problem. It's when someone just comes out winning out of nowhere. It's because people know how it works now, mainly.
Yeah.
It doesn't suspend disbelief, and that's very important. If you can, even for a second, forget that what you're watching is not real, even though, to most people who don't know, it would really forget even for a second, but you do. When you call up, you're like, oh my God, and it's cool. But when someone just randomly comes out winning, like the whole Kane situation, half of the whole idea of that is that he kept losing and he wasn't a threat anymore. So you got a title match. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. He hasn't wrestled properly for ages. He's wrestling in trousers like that I would go to working. And he goes to working, actually.
You got this title match by repeatedly interfering in other people's matches and basically assaulting them.
Yes. And it doesn't make any sense. There's exceptions to be made, like Kevin Owens when he assaulted Sami Zayn. That was believable because he did it specially to make Sami Zayn give him a title shot.
Yeah.
And it works within the storyline. It's like, he jumped the queue, and they even talked about how he jumped the queue.
Yeah.
And the reason he assaulted him was to jump the queue. And I'm not waiting for my opportunity. I'm taking it now. But Kane, it was like, well, you lose all the time. You're not a threat to anyone. And we spoke about this yesterday. Bray now, if Bray ever gets a title shot in the next 6 months, it's going to be like, really? But you lose all the time.
And I feel, we talk, me and Spud say this quite regularly, but I'll put it on. I'll document it now on SpudAdi, so it's
for the record books,
for the record books of Tuesday night SpudAdi.
Tuesday nights.
Bray Wyatt, for those of you who aren't wrestling fans, is this scary hillbilly style character who plays his gimmick really, really well. I don't know if maybe hillbilly is the wrong phrase. More like kind of swamp guy.
Swamp
he's got long hair, long beard, weird looking.
You can imagine him in a horror film where they've got like a house in the woods and they chop up people.
Yeah.
That kind of guy.
That kind of a guy. And he's a good talker. He doesn't shout very much. He's just kind of freaky. And a lot of people have kind of referred to him as like a modern day Undertaker. But he just keeps losing. He has a good gimmick where he basically kind of stalks someone and you're not always sure who he's going after. So he appears for a few weeks, kind of talking in vague terms, and then he gets more and more specific. So you're kind of like, oh, I think he might be talking about this person, that person, and then eventually he attacks someone. It leads to a feud between them, and then nearly always Bray loses. And so now, for me, it's reached the point of, well, it doesn't really matter who he goes after because he's gonna, especially if they're a main eventer, he loses.
Yeah, we jokingly had the conversation where he comes out and he threatens someone, and they're like, "Oh, thank God, because I haven't won for ages. But if I'm fighting you, there's a good chance I'm going to win
Thanks,
because
Bray.
you always lose."
I needed something in the win columns. It's great to have you here.
And then Bray's like, "No, in the face of fear, look at me. I'm all freaky and weird, and I'm doing a weird crab walk. Yeah, but you're going to lose. Something's going to happen.
Yeah,
I mean, you're probably going to beat me up a lot.
It's not just about winning one match, because in most feuds, someone wins one match somehow, some way. It's being the dominant one when the feud ends. And if you actually go through a lot of Bray's feuds, he loses. Like Daniel Bryan at the end of that one, he got won in the end.
Really? I thought that's the only one I can remember him winning the feud.
Bray had, as far as I remember it, I could be wrong. Bray won the very good match at the Royal Rumble. Then Daniel Bryan joined his little group. Then Daniel Bryan turned on Bray, and there was he beat the hell out of Bray. So he kind of the last connection that happened between them was positive for.
Oh right, yeah, but he won the match.
He won a singles match very convincingly. So yes, that was one of the few. Then Bray loses to Undertaker. He loses to Roman Reigns. Now he loses to
Dean Ambrose.
Cena. Sorry, who was it?
Dean Ambrose. He had the feud with Dean Ambrose. That's it. I think we're up to date. But he just loses. He likes to lose. And when he does win, it's like a weird disqualification. I mean, he did beat Roman, but he had to beat Roman, with the interference from Luke Harper and stuff.
Yeah. Which I don't mind so much, but obviously when you win with interference, it tends to be the middle of a feud, not the end of a feud.
Yeah, I mean, leading up to... That's the only one thing I would say is that whole Hell in a Cell thing, it did end in a Hell in a Cell, and that felt right for that. But I think because Roman won't lose anything because everyone knows that Vince wants to have his babies and stuff, so...
It makes sense from Roman's point of view, because obviously, if you haven't watched Raw, you probably want to stop listening there, but the new number one contender is Roman. So Roman had to win. Makes sense. But they've obviously now put Bray against The Undertaker. So in order for Bray to be a threat to The Undertaker, Bray also had to win. So I think, to me, they kind of just, there wasn't enough forward planning. They put both men in a situation where they both needed the win and can only give it to one person.
Yeah, and the argument can be made, well, The Undertaker lost as well, so it's two losers against each other. But what you're forgetting is that The Undertaker more or less won for 25 years straight, with the occasional loss, where Bray hasn't won apart from one big pay-per-view match. So, yeah, that's the difference.
Assuming, this is a big assumption, but assuming that was Undertaker's last big singles match, and he's going to, I'm guessing he's going to be involved in some sort of Survivor Series match, minor thing. But if that was his last big singles match, do you think it was a good way to go out?
Yeah, it was memorable. It made sense. It had those moments in it where you remember, and a lot of wrestling type. I just even when they're spot fests, those fade in your memory. But I do find it silly and amazing at the same time that the feud was kind of based around each other hitting each other in the balls at the end, which I think is awesome. But then when you try and take it seriously, which you shouldn't, but if you did, it's like, really?
Yours is a vision of someone coming in and saying, why are these guys having a match? Right, well, he hit him in the balls.
Well, he beat him in wrestling at the big thing and lost his streak. Okay, did he cheat? No, he did it fairly. And then he showed off about this, rightfully so, because it's such a big deal. So he kept coming back and hitting him in the balls, and then he beat him at a major show by hitting him in the balls.
Yeah,
and then eventually he got his revenge by hitting him in the balls and beat him. So the balls. It should have been balls on the whole match.
A very ball-based feud.
I think I said that way for episode 2 of the podcast was, I hope this feud is going to be based around penises and balls. And it was. I was right. It's like I can see the future of wrestling feuds. I'm starting to get inside the mind of Vince McMahon.
So we've got a random thing going on in the UK at the moment with something called tax credits. And it's all gone a little bit Pete Tong in our political system because... I'm sure everyone in the UK kind of knows our political system in depth, but the basic premise is we have a House of Commons and a House of Lords, and the House of Commons basically has all the power, and the House of Lords is these days there to just suggest things and rubber stamp things. But we don't have a constitution, so it's all done by convention. There's not set rules in place. It's just that the convention is that if the House of Commons, which is the elected MPs, put things through, then the House of Lords can make noises and they can suggest things and they may well be listened to. They can be controversial, blah, 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 blah. They can act as a kind of a checker, but they don't actually block anything. And if on the few occasions they have, it's a big deal. And our current government, the Conservative government, had tried to remove what's something called tax credits, which basically means everyone has to pay a certain amount of tax, but if you're below a certain poverty level or you've got some sort of means testing or something like that, you get a tax credit, which means you have to pay less tax because you have a particular kind of need. And the genius thing here is that before the election, David Cameron and others said, we're not touching tax credits. We're not going to do anything with tax credits. They've then been elected. They've now said, oh yeah, we're scrapping tax credits or removing a huge chunk of them. Voted it through the Commons because they have a majority. And then the House of Lords has turned around and said, no, it's wrong. It's causing all sorts of problems for us. It will cause all sorts of problems, so we're not going to approve it. And they've said no. And that is very, 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 very rare for the House of Lords to actually turn down something.
Isn't it like the first time since the 70s or something? It's been or ever.
Because I'm sure there are other things that have been blocked in the Lords, but it's big. And then David Cameron's turned around and gone, well, fine. Now we're going to have a review of the House of Lords, quite frankly, so screw you. But ironically, in his last government, when he was there with the Lib Dems proposed a review to the House of Lords, and the Conservatives said, no, don't do that.
It's just throwing his toys out of his pram, basically.
It's just all very... It's playing with people's lives, which is a big problem. But to me, it seems a very... I'm feeling neutral politically. I'll talk about this on SpudAdi. There are some conservative things I kind of go, oh, I do see that, and there's some Labour things I do I go, oh yeah, I kind of see that. I guess if I'm anything, I'm probably a little bit kind of new Labour, but that's not really around anymore. But so I'm not, just in principle against the Tories or in principle against Labour or anything like that. But I do think this is a very big conservative screw up.
I'm going to be biased against, because like I've said before, I can't stand our Prime Minister. I think he's very, very slimy looking and vibe giving individual. And this is exactly the reason. Before, he's on camera saying, well, he doesn't want to scrap them. That was one. And then he actually said in another interview he wasn't going to, and they have no plans to, and all this other rubbish. And lo and behold, they do it. So that's the first, that he's going back on promises. And anyone who voted for them, to be frank, what did you expect? They did it before when he promised to have a referendum of Europe, and then he just, no, I didn't promise. And then they played him a video of him saying that he was going to do one. Oh, well, I definitely will this time, and all this other rubbish. and he more or less threatened this, didn't he? He said if this happens, then he's going to have a review of the House of Commons, the House of Lords. So but it's Osborne as well today come out with a statement along the lines of, we're still going to go through with it basically, but we're going to reduce the impact on people's lives, which is completely different from when he was arguing with Corbyn in the House of Lords saying, no, people aren't getting a worse deal. They're going to make more money because the minimum wage is going up. So so there is no impact, but there is an impact because you're going to make it reduced of an impact. So is there an impact or not? They know they're lying. It's embarrassing for them, and hopefully people have realised now that it's just ridiculous what they're doing.
I've had this debate with Clary a few times about the House of Lords, because I don't mind it. I don't think the House of Lords is a bad idea. I don't like the idea of hereditary lords, because basically it's one of these systems that's grown out of the fact that Britain is just such an old freaking country, and it's just it's a relic of from the times when there were lords and ladies and kings and queens were the people that kind of ruled Britain, and it's evolved into this system over lots and lots of changes, where basically the House of Commons is what we elect, and then the House of Lords, most of it now is life peers, which is someone who has shown that they are outstanding in a certain field, and then they are granted a lordship, which means that they are then able to vote or have a voice on certain issues in the country. So, for example, Andrew Lloyd Webber, who has done massives for service to music and people enjoyment to people's lives and blah, 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 has been made a lord, and therefore he gets to vote because he has expertise in a certain area and theatre and things like that. And then you've got someone else, someone in the field of computing, and obviously lots and lots of politicians get made lords and ladies because they have obviously shown public and servants as well. But the idea is, but the way I kind of feel about it is that you've kind of got an opportunity for a house of experts rather than elected people. You've got a house of experts who are then able to kind of say, this piece of legislation is fundamentally flawed because of X, Y, Z, or this piece of legislation is a good idea, so we're going to let it through. And I think it in principle has merit, but Clary thinks that it's. And I do completely see her point. She thinks it's a terrible idea because you've actually got then unelected people that are able to kind of block things or unblock things. And this is what's going to come up today, is that basically what you've had today is the elected people said, we're going to put this through, and the unelected people have said, no, you're not. And that is a constitutional problem. However, of course, the elected people said they weren't going to do it before they did it after they were elected, which then makes it, it's just messed up.
It is. I mean, I don't have a particular problem with the House of Lords apart from the whole, I think we spoke about on another episode, that the people are, it always seems a different class level that these people get to make opinions. Like the Queen. It's like the whole idea of the Queen. It's like, well, she's just a human being. But
yeah,
I get it. But at the same time, and there's the other argument is like how actually, even politics, MPs and stuff, most of them, how much of an expert on these life matters for everyone in the country, especially the working and the lower classes.
Yeah.
Are you? Because you haven't experienced or lived it or know anyone, or, you just might get a couple of letters from people, et cetera, et cetera. And can you speak on it?
The way it goes wrong is you still in the Lords have Conservative Lords, Labour Lords, Lib Dem Lords, and so on. And it's like, well, that's not really like an expert on a particular field if you're actually still affiliated to a party.
Yeah. I mean, what is Andrew Lloyd Webber's expertise? What exactly did he get his Lord for entertainment and music? Right.
Well, yeah, but I don't want that because sometimes the government. So, say for example, if the government decided to change something with the BBC, for argument's sake, that would have an impact on Britain's arts. I mean, he's basically he's an arts expert, if you like, or he represents one art field. So
didn't he vote on this particular scenario though?
Yes, he did. So in theory, he's voted on something that he's not an expert in.
Yeah, he's not any expert. Yeah, exactly. That's where it falls down. I'm glad they did, though. I'm glad they did do this. It's like when you dislike someone until they do something you like, and now you've really confused me because you've done something I agree with, and you've tried to block it. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I know what would like to happen, but I don't know if it's going to happen.
Well, what I don't want to happen is to have two elected chambers, because I don't know a lot about America's political system because it confuses me, but I believe they have at least two different elected houses plus a president plus this plus that, and I don't really understand it, and I don't see the point of having two elected chambers, especially when one of them can overrule the other. So what's the point? You're saying, so when I vote this time, my vote's really important, and when I vote this time, my vote's less important. It's like, I mean, I get kind of like national government and local government, but that's different. To actually just have two nationally elected bodies seems just weird. But ho-hum, politics on SpudAdi, innit?
Politics, wrestling, and I can't remember the first thing we spoke about because I'm very old. Tuesday! It's Tuesday.
How's The Witcher?
It's 8:45. The Witcher, I love that game so much. So anyone who hasn't played it and has any interest in role-playing games, just go and play it. It doesn't matter if you've played the first two, because I just read about the first two. And I might even go back and try and do 2 again, even though I didn't like the gameplay, because I just like it and I want more of it. It's just so good. It's such a good story. It's, one of those worlds like, trying to think of like Harry Potter, the way that world kind of absorbed everyone and everyone loved the idea, and it really was a good world. And Fallout, for example, that's another world as well. And the Marvel, those worlds that you really can get lost in, and you just want to explore every nook and cranny. This is it. It's got politics, it's got wars, it's got wizards, it's got monsters, it's everything. And you really do, with your choices, you can decide the way you play with the main character, which everyone has to be. You can't pick your own character, but you can I'm going. I've told you yesterday. I'm a complete womanizing scumbag, but it's funny, and I just been caught out by all my lady friends.
I love how you've kind of taken these options of like, I could be all good, I could be all evil, I could be a bounty hunter, and you've kind of looked at all the options and gone, I'm going to be a slut.
I'm a goodie though, but it's not just a slut. It's just that my character's main weakness is women. So if there's, there was a guy getting picked on by some guards who
you're JFK basically.
Yeah, I'm a force of good, but my weakness is what's in my pants. It's terrible. There was a guy getting harassed by guards. There's like a town in the game, and they're fundamentally racist, but not against like normal human, like black, white, Asian, etc. It's elves and dwarfs and stuff like that. Oh, you dirty dwarf! We're gonna string you up and burn you alive. And it's like, oh, whatever. And there was a woman getting harassed. It's like, hey, leave her alone. And I ended up beheading like 3 people because they dare pick on a woman. And I walked her home, and then she went, I wonder if there was some other way I could repay you. Stuff like that. It's great. A man, I don't care. But a woman, I've got to protect her because I'm a dirty Geralt. It's good. I like it. It's raising up the ranks of my favourite role-playing games. I think nostalgia will stop it overtaking Ocarina of Time, but still.
Oh, would you say Ocarina of Time was a role-playing game?
Yeah. Zelda's a role-playing, definitely.
No, I'd say it's an adventure game.
Nah.
What role can you play other than Link?
Well, what role can you play in Bloodborne, and what role can you play in Fallout 3? Really, I mean, you don't get a choice.
Loads. So in Fallout 3, I can choose to whether be good or evil, and I can choose which skill set I want to use to develop the character. So I can.
Good. Okay, good point. Should we leave this up to Google?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to Google it. What type of game?
I'll Google it. Not that I don't trust it. Is Zelda it is a good result. Is Zelda an RPG? There has been much debate on whether games of The Legend of Zelda are true RPGs. While in his adventures, Link collects items and upgrades his health and magic. He does not gain levels, with the exception of The Adventure of Link. He is also a relatively static character. That's my thing. Yeah,
that's your point. So, but what's the overall? Hang on, I'm googling as well.
The only role you play is him. You don't have a choice of role.
But that alone wouldn't complete your argument.
By the way,
because
did you say okay Google before you did that?
I didn't. I typed it in because I didn't want to be. I could do. Okay, okay, Google. What type of game is Zelda Ocarina of Time? Is it going to talk to me or going to be? Oh, no, it's not going to talk to me. It's too complicated. Loads of Japanese articles. I can't speak Japanese.
Is Siri not being as helpful as you?
Google Translate. Oh wait. There's
an article here called "Zelda games are not RPG games."
Well, I think they are.
I think if it is an RPG game, then my understanding of an RPG game is very different to yours. For me, Zelda is no more of an RPG. For me, the Link character, or he upgrades as he goes, but I don't see any major difference between. Okay, would you say Infamous is an RPG?
No.
In what ways is Zelda and Infamous different then? Because because in Infamous you get a choice of good and bad.
Yeah, you choose and you level
upgrade
up
your character. You choose where to put your perk points, so to speak.
Okay, so let's flip it on you then. With everything you said, is Infamous a role-playing game?
No.
But you said you get to choose how your character is. If he's evil, you upgrade his abilities, you upgrade his powers.
But you don't get to choose your character class. You don't get to choose your skill set other than very limited amount. I would say it has RPG.
You do, especially in 2 and what's the new one called? What's the new Infamous game called? Oh, he's got his headphones on. My son's not listening to me. How dare he? I can't remember what it's called. First son, second son. That's yeah, you can. You got like different levels of powers, and you can level them up higher or lower, and etc. So, but Bloodborne, you don't get to pick who your character is. There's very little really picking on who your character is. But you still upgrade your powers and your abilities and stuff. I know it's a deep question, man. This is possibly the deepest question.
There's RPG elements, right? So I guess the answer to this question is you then put in all the elements that make an RPG game, and then you basically kind of say to what score is Zelda an RPG and Infamous an RPG and so on. I mean, so I can name me a game which is a pure RPG, like what's as RPG as you can get. It would have to be something like World of Warcraft or
well, isn't World of Warcraft
Skyrim? Surely that's
Skyrim or Witcher.
So Fallout is basically a modern setting of Skyrim, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose I would put Fallout. I suppose the gun element would maybe bleed it in. And I think it's not a problem because games are cool, but a lot of games, they're coming into one big, most games are now, more and more the good ones are open world, choices, skill trees, upgrading, etc., etc. And the way you made Zelda sound then is Arkham games also RPGs. So I get where you're coming from. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's just the vibe. Maybe that's what it is. But
the world of Zelda is a lot more similar to World of Warcraft. So it has an RPG feel. I will agree with you that. And for that reason, things like Infamous don't feel like RPGs because, there's not a little shopkeeper with a sword and a shield. But the elements are perhaps the same.
This is deep, man. I didn't know this was going to lead to such a deep.
I like little random deep conversations that kind of.
As a pure RPGs, yeah, it's probably Western RPGs. But then would it go into the whole Western and Japanese RPGs, JRPGs, and Western RPGs?
So is Final Fantasy a JRPG, or am I getting?
Yeah, that's a Japanese role-playing game. Yeah.
So what's the difference?
That one's developed in Japan.
That's not it.
Well, no, they've always got. I'm trying to think of an exception to the rule, but they've always got a quirky element to them, and Westerns normally have got quite a serious element to them. I'm trying to think of an exception. If you can think of an exception to the rule, then let me know.
What about that game that you Shimui? Was that an RPG?
Yeah. Ooh. You kind of upgraded. You learned new moves. That was a long time ago. I remember really liking it.
But surely in all games you upgrade. I mean, that's just how you like even in something like what's the one that was done Naughty Dog, but not Uncharted?
The Last of Us.
Yeah, I mean that one game you get new moves and weapons and you develop it. I mean just how games work is you unlock things as you go. But that doesn't make it an RPG.
Oh, what is an RPG?
An RPG, by definition, but for me, is because it's a role-playing game. It's a game where you can choose a particular role or character and follow that role or character's path in the game, and then you could play the game again and choose a very different role and play the game completely differently. And in a game like The Last of Us, although you can upgrade your powers or upgrade your weapons, and the same goes for Batman. In Batman, although you can choose your powers and you choose to put your points in different places, ultimately the character you play never changes. And the same goes for Zelda. Ultimately in Zelda, Link is always Link.
But then Final Fantasy, and I'm not a big Final Fantasy guy, but that had a story to tell, and you leveled up your characters, and you may have made a couple of choices like 7 or etc. And certain things happen to major characters from what I understand. Again, and I'm in any way, shape or form an expert on these games, but that also you played a character and you had a journey to go on through the character.
So I didn't know I honestly didn't know if Final Fantasy was an RPG.
Yeah, I mean it was an RPG before the phrase JRPG was needed, because there was hardly any successful, at least big successful Western RPGs until you Fallout.
Someone here has argued that, I've just Googled it, someone here is arguing that Final Fantasy is not an RPG.
Oh. See, loads of people that I've read articles about and even spoken to definitely class that as an RPG. I mean,
there's lots of different categories. There's an adventure RPG, an action RPG, and a pure RPG, and there's a pen and paper RPG.
So then, by taking away the first part, what is the definitions of each one then?
Oh God, I think
this is getting deeper and deeper, man.
We need a big article. We need some expert guidance. We need the guy that invented the internet to come on and sort this out.
I've just Googled the meaning, the definition. A role-playing game is a game in which players assume the role of characters in a fictional setting, but then isn't any game, apart from FIFA and sports games, an RPG, just by that definition.
Well, by that definition, FIFA is, because you're assuming the role of a
football player, I suppose, yeah. And like Mario RPG, because you're on a journey, or Mario, you're this Brooklyn. Is he from Brooklyn? I think he was in the film, but I don't think he is in the actual game.
RPG is that thing that you can play the game more than once and play it completely differently as different characters. And from my understanding of Final Fantasy, although I haven't played many of them, you can pick different partners up at some point, but you're always doing the same kind of quests, as far as I understand. But I'm not an expert on Final Fantasy, so shoot me down on that one if I'm just wrong.
Because one of my other favourites was Secret of Mana, and I would count that as an RPG. But now, maybe it's not.
We've got 5 minutes left. I, this week, have also started cooking bread. You
have, which I find very funny. I don't know if anyone else finds it funny. I think it's funny. Maybe because I've known you so long.
Flour as we speak.
Allegedly. I never would have guessed that you would have gone into baking. Is it? It's all Great British Bake Off. That's what's done it.
Oh yeah, it's Great British Bake Off, and you know how fatty I am. So chances are next week you'll be like, "How's your bread going?" And I'll be like, "What bread?
Bread? Got it from the supermarket? What? I now milk my own cow.
Yes, I now milk my own chicken. Yes, I've made flatbread, 2 loaves, and some baguettes over the last 3 days.
Oh.
It's been fun.
Next time I come around, you have to go to make me some bread then.
Well, I'm still learning, so,
bread,
I keep hearing Paul Hollywood's voice in my head being like, it's raw. Don't eat that, Mary. Oh, no. Oh, you see what you've done there. All the dough's gone back to the beginning. See, what you did there was you didn't prove it properly. You'd
be more worried if you got Mary's voice in your head all the time. Just leave me alone.
Mary doesn't say a lot when it comes to bread. She's an expert on cakes. When it comes to bread, she just tends to says things like, "Oh, yes, I think that tastes rather lovely."
I'm an expert on cakes. That's why I'm so fat. Mrs. Spud had a Halloween baking contest with her friends today, a little premature Halloween party, and she brought back lots of cupcakes, and I ate lots. Very nice.
Well, that was this week's SpudAdi. Covered everything from RPGs to parliamentary policy to wrestling. Tonight. In this very ring, etc., etc., etc. If you have enjoyed yourself, then please do follow our channels. We're here every Tuesday recording, and then it appears on the various podcast channels Wednesday evenings, I think. And
yes,
do recommend us to your friends if you wouldn't mind. We have a Twitter, which is at SpudAdiCast. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Or you can email us. I think we've only ever got one email, but I treasure
spam.
Buy your Viagra here. Viagra, whatever.
Jenny is 17 and really wants to hear from you.
Why has Jenny got a beard? It's Hulk Hogan. No, please, Jenny, don't show me that. Yes, it's been fun. Good.
It wasn't until you said that. What the frick?
What? Hulk Hogan sending you spam mail, showing his junk, and it's not a 17-year-old. It's funny. Think about it.
What emails do you get?
It's not me. It's the SpudAdi Cast email address.
What?
It all comes from the Adipose TV, so I always open it in trusting, and it's like, oh no, what has he done again? Hogan bread. That's what you should cook.
No.
Oh, okay.
We're ending. Oh, I'm gonna have to edit this out. I'm gonna have to edit this out of the show now.
I don't leave it.
There'll just be like us talking about RPGs, and all of a sudden there'll be like a sudden cut and me going, "That's the end of the
show." Goodbye. It was fun. See you later.
Right. Okay, we're off. Thank you very much for coming, everybody, and we'll see you real soon. Take care. You've been fantastic. Bye-bye. SpudAdi, you Spud and I'm Addy. Just listen, you'll glisten, cause you'll be so happy. Our podcast is random talk on this and on that. But what did you expect from potatoes and fat? Yeah, what did you expect from potatoes and fat?